This episode of NSCTV is brought to you by Auto Scratch, Bushranger Brotherhood, Geelong Firearm Courses, Hunters and Shooters Society of Australia, Kilsyth Outdoor Store, and Shooters Union Australia. Welcome to another episode of NSCTV, and thank you to our Patreon supporters and sponsors for making this possible. Today we talk with Peter Zabradak about what to do if the police come to your front door wanting to take your firearms off you. So stay with us. So I've got Peter Zabradak, Vice President of the NSC, with me. Peter, how you doing?
G'day Neil, how you going? G'day viewers.
So we're talking here about what to do if the police roll up to your place unannounced and they want to have a chat with you about your firearms license. So Peter, what advice do you have?
Okay, we get a lot of these cases, as you know, Neil, where shooters contact us because they've been served a suspension notice or a cancellation notice, and it's very, very important for all shooters to know how to react and what their rights are in that particular situation. So there's a number of things that are first of all, very, very important to talk about. So we'll start off with the basics. As I said, most firearms licenses are suspended or cancelled, worst case scenario, but let's talk about suspension. And that's usually because of domestic violence orders or other types of intervention, personal safety intervention orders. And I've seen them being used for things like business disputes, and all sorts of stuff. So we know that the whole IVO process is open to abuse. But at the end of the day, the police come, they knock on the door, and they've got an IVO to serve, and they say, we're here to take your guns and your license. So there's a couple of things at that particular point in time that the shooters need to be aware of. Okay. First of all, the police have to serve the paperwork on you, notice of suspension. And that has to give you some understanding or basic information about what your rights are. So usually what will happen is they will issue a suspension notice saying your firearms license is being suspended and that they intend to move to a cancellation. And those notices usually say that you have 28 days, for argument's sake, to show and make a written submission as to why your firearms license should not be cancelled. Now, there's a couple of points here. If a shooter has been served a suspension notice and the police say we're taking your guns and your ammo, you actually legally remain the owner of your firearms and your ammunition. So under the various state firearms acts, and all states are the same, a shooter that's in that situation actually has the right to request that either his firearms be transferred to a dealer and put into storage until the matter is resolved, or transferred into another license holder's name. Okay, so the police won't tell you that you have that right, but you actually do have that right. So it's a case of, if you find yourself in that situation, contact your friendly dealer, make arrangements for the dealer to take your firearms. Sometimes the dealer will pick them up, other times the police will take them there, but the dealer will usually require a permission note from you. But the most important point is, the firearms remain your property. Yeah. Now, even if your license goes to cancellation stage and it is cancelled, your firearms still remain your property. So what we say is get them out of the police's hands as quickly as possible, because I've seen too many instances where firearms are returned and they come back rusty, they come back dinged up, they come back with scopes missing, various other accessories missing. So your guns are a lot safer in dealer storage or with another license holder.
Now, I know you'll be talking very shortly about, I guess, some of the other instances you've come across where that kind of thing's happened. But what if the police don't have paperwork or don't give paperwork to you? I know that there have been people who've been in the situation, and it's kind of difficult because they're fronting up, presumably using a legal power as opposed to simply coming up and knocking on your front door. If they don't have paperwork and they want to take your firearms, do you have any particular advice for them?
In that situation, if the police say that we are here to seize your firearms, they require one or two things: either a warrant, a firearms warrant, which enables them to seize firearms, and it will detail that on the firearms warrant, or, as I said, a suspension or cancellation letter. They can't just rock up and say, we're taking your guns with no corresponding paperwork whatsoever. Legally, they just cannot do that. It's unlawful.
Yeah, I mean, they can come to your front door and I guess...
yeah, they'll try. They will try. And we've heard cases where they've tried it on over the years, Neil. You and I both know that. So, yeah, but by all means. But there has to be...
And in that situation, if they're simply coming to your door as a member of the public, although wearing a uniform, so they're not actually using a power of entry, you've got a right, if they want to come in and you don't want them there, you've got a right to actually refuse entry.
Correct,
although it can be problematic, but you actually have a right. Unless they're
absolutely. It also goes with storage inspections. I mean, the police can't just rock up at any time and say we're here to do a storage inspection. The storage inspection has to be at a reasonable time and with prior agreement. So going back to the storage inspections, for argument's sake, I've seen instances where 6 coppers, 3 carloads of police have rocked up to do a storage inspection. And, of course, obviously the licence holder feels a little bit intimidated by that situation. But, no, you've got the right to say, I'm really sorry, it doesn't suit me now. Come back at a mutually convenient time.
It's reminiscent of the raid on Ron Sterry's place in Northern
Absolutely. There's a perfect example of what happened to Ron. So, yeah, absolutely.
A truckload of police turned up and they actually wasted a lot of time because he was over in Adelaide, and
correct.
It's not as though they had the right to go in and kick the door down. Instead, they had to come up with another reason to gain entry. Which,
absolutely.
Now, the importance of paperwork really can't be understated here, because not only does it relate to what they did and why and what your appeal rights are, but also what was actually taken. So that there's
absolutely. Anytime the police come and they seize property, it doesn't matter what state it is, you are entitled to ask for a receipt of all property seized. Give you a classic example. Had a gentleman in Victoria who had a visit from the police to serve an IVO on him. They took his firearms and a large quantity of ammunition. I think it was about 10,000 rounds of various calibre ammunition that he owned. He ended up having the IVO thrown out when it was challenged in court. He got his licence and his guns back. But funnily enough and strangely enough, a large chunk of his ammunition that had been seized disappeared. And the police denied that there was so much ammo, in fact. Now, he was actually quite smart about how he did things, because he took photographs of everything as a backup. So there's a legal case pending. I can't say much more than that, but it's not a bad idea to take pictures of everything the police are seizing and ask for a property receipt for stuff that they walk out the door with.
Just on that matter, how much had gone missing?
As I understand it, he had about 10,000 rounds of various calibers, pistol and rifle ammo, and he got back about 3,000 rounds.
Yeah, what bothers me is, we were talking before we came on, was that ammo comes in boxes. It's actually pretty easy to see how many boxes of ammo were taken, and
correct,
rather than necessarily counting each individual round, especially if it's small caliber stuff, because it's so easy to.
Absolutely.
So someone does end up in trouble. They've had something seized. They have appeal rights, which they really need to. Well, first of all, there may, in some jurisdictions, be a right of internal review offered. In which case, I guess our advice is follow the process, do it, and make sure you don't miss any timeframes for lodging an appeal, because it is a pathway to actually getting hopefully some resolution to the matter.
Yeah. Look, absolutely. Read the paperwork that's been served on you slowly and carefully. If you still have any questions or any doubts, do what a lot of people do, and that's reach out to the NSC, because we're always here to help. I've lost track of how many shooters we've provided advice to and been successful in assisting them to get their licenses and their firearms back. But, as I said, understandable. It's an emotional situation. You feel overawed by what's going on. It's not a nice situation to be in, unfortunately, but it happens, and it happens all too often.
One thing which tends to creep into the process a fair bit is when paperwork is served on someone, usually the reason why their license might be suspended or revoked is because they're not fit and proper, without actually saying why they're not fit and proper. And that, to me, it doesn't sit well with me, because it's not explaining why the person's not fit and proper. That's what the law says. The law simply just says that someone can't hold a license if they're not fit and proper. But it's got to come down to the person's behaviour, what they've done, or something that you can actually challenge them on.
Look, it's sad. Just because you're a firearms license holder, the attitude is you're guilty and you have to prove yourself innocent.
Right.
And it's ridiculous, but it is the way it is. But as I said, you do have rights. And if in any doubt, need advice, we're always here.
Sure. And usually that'll be in the form of internal review. And some jurisdictions, they can go to a tribunal to have their matter, if the review doesn't turn out in their favour, to actually take the next step, which is to go to a tribunal.
Yep.
And then from there, they can escalate up, which obviously costs money when you get into magistrates' court and Supreme Courts and things like that. But there are avenues of appeal. And I think, again, the time frame is so important, because you don't want to lock yourself out of your ability to be able to go up that chain.
No worries, Neil. And as I said, viewers, always remember, if you've got any questions or any problems, reach out. We get so many inquiries and so many calls, but we endeavour to get back to everyone within 24 to 48 hours. I know quite often I will ring after hours or on weekends, and shooters will get a real surprise. Oh, I only contacted you a couple of hours ago. But we are always here to help. Remember that.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of NSCTV, and don't forget to share it with your friends and through Facebook and email. See you next time.